Hello, Robin. You are up next.
Hey, how's it going, Bart?
How's it going, Robin? Where are you playing out of?
Yeah, this is from Casino, Nova Scotia in Halifax.
Oh, I don't know if we've ever had a call from Casino, Nova Scotia. Casino, Nova Scotia. All right. So, what game are you playing?
Yeah, so this is 2-5. We're nine-handed,
Okay.
and we're about 1,300 effective.
What's the structure in this game?
2-5, $9 rake.
Like, is there max buy-in? I mean,
Oh, sorry, yeah, it's 500.
oh, it's a 500, and you're up to and you're 1,300 effective. Obviously, I mean that makes a big difference too with the background, right? I mean, I think there's a huge difference between like where I came from, like the games in LA with the $5 500 versus like, oh well, if it's a 2-5, it's a 1K cap, you're at 13. But here you're whoever you're playing with, you guys are both like 2.5 extra stack.
Yeah, I mean, the game has a lot of the same players over and over. And so it's just important to try to get deep, like, as quickly as possible.
Right. Okay. So 2-5 9-handed 1,300 effective. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm middle position. I think I'm just like low jack with ace of hearts, queen of clubs, and I open at 20.
So here on the low jack, ace of hearts, queen of clubs opens to 20. That's about the standard open size.
Yeah, I go like if there's limpers in between, then I'll go higher like by either $5 or $10 depending on who's limping.
Mm-hmm.
But 20 is pretty standard, yeah.
Okay.
And only the button calls.
So the button only calls. Okay. So your head's up and the pot's like what, 45 or something like that?
Yeah. So the flop is queen of diamonds, three of diamonds, three of hearts.
Queen of diamonds, three of diamonds, three of hearts. Hero with ace of hearts, queen of clubs. So you flop top.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty good flop.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes check these boards just to kind of disguise the strength of my hand. And also, I'm just really not afraid of much.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I'd like to give the opponent a chance to catch up with hands like King Jack or Jack 10 or Ace Jack that are just going to just fold to a bet. And there's really no bad turn card.
I mean, your hand doesn't, right, your hand doesn't really need a whole lot of protection. One of the things I would look at here is like think about, well, what is a button flat call type of range here? Is it, a lot of times it might be pairs, which you might be able to get value from now anyways. Whether any, deuces through like eights or something like that. The other thing, sometimes you can get called here by ace highs as well. You have an ace in your hand, so it's slightly less likely. And then what are the other hands that people call with here on the button? It would be what, like suited connectors, some Broadway suited types of holdings, things like that. I don't know. Every time I like default thinking that I want to check, I just bet small. I mean, I don't think it's terrible, but I just think that you could still bet like 15 here or something like that. Like the reason for checking would be so that he would stab at it with a hand that he would just otherwise fold to a small bet, which isn't all that common. I would say necessarily. I mean, that's how I would feel about looking at whether I was going to bet or check here.
Yeah, I don't always check. I think multi-way, it's 100% a bet. It's just sometimes I like to mix it up. I play with the same players all the time. So sometimes it's just nice to just, I don't know, have a little bit of balance, I guess. But yeah, I would be betting this board most of the time. I just decided this time to check.
So you did check.
Yeah, I checked and he checked back.
Okay. So hero checks, button checks behind. Now, if he had bet, are you just calling? Check calling?
I guess it would depend on his size. If he bet like maybe super small, I would probably raise. And then if he bet bigger, I would just call.
Now, the interesting thing about that part is that if you just a little bit something subtle, like I said, I don't take this line all that often, but I would rather check raise aces or kings here than ace queen. Just
Right.
because if you have ace queen, there's just more of a chance that he doesn't have a queen. So, and you can make your hand look like you've got ace high and you're check calling. So, I mean, I don't think it would be terrible to, to start a check raise, but I would say, when I like to do that on the flop as the pre-flop raiser, when I unblock top pair, whether that's over pairs, whether that's flopping like middle set, things like that. But okay, so you check and the button checks behind. Okay.
Yep. So the turn is the 10 of hearts.
10 of hearts. So it's queen of diamonds, 3 of diamonds, 3 of hearts, 10 of hearts. It puts a backdoor heart draw out there. Front door diamonds, backdoor hearts. Hero has the ace of hearts. Okay.
It's like a super wet turn. Like it brings in so many draws that he can have now. So I bet pretty close to pot. I think I could have even went bigger, but I bet 35.
All right, so
Probably could have just gone full pot.
yeah, I actually like, if I checked, I probably would just bet full pot here. And the thing is that like you can credibly say like, well, you're now betting ace king, ace jack, or something like two Broadway types of holdings. And like whether it's 35 or 45, I think he might be just still calling with the same range. Like I don't know if you're getting the action from like sixes here anyways. So I mean, it's close, but I would probably just lean towards betting like 40 or 45. But okay, you bet 35.
Yeah, and he just calls.
All right, so the button calls. So he checks back the flop. You bet 35 on the turn, and he calls on queen 3 10 with two flush draws now, and the pot's $115. Okay.
Yeah. So the river's the jack of hearts.
The jack of hearts. So queen 3 10 jack, and now backdoor hearts come in. However, you have the ace of hearts in your hand, which feels to me like it makes it much easier to bet here. I feel like, remember, you're beating jack 10, right? Like if he like ran into jack 10, you're winning. It's queen 3 jack 10. Now you're losing to queen 10 and queen jack, but there was no bet on the flop. Now, could he have like queen 10? Queen jack once in a while? I guess so. If he wasn't calling raises with queen jack offsuit, you look back at the suit of your queen and you realize that with the queen of clubs in your hand, the queen of diamonds, and the jack of hearts on board, there's actually only one combo of queen jack suited. The thing that I'm looking at though is that I think it makes it a lot easier for you here, especially on this flush distribution, to bet with the ace of hearts, because what are the possible backdoor heart holdings that he can have? He can't have ace x of hearts because you have it. We would probably say that it's unlikely that he had like queen x of hearts, which would be what? Just king queen of hearts. He didn't bet the flop. There was no 3-bet pre. Queen 9 of hearts if it went down that far. I mean, again, like it's just like one of these once in a while types of things. So, I mean, in reality, when you take those things out, now you're just like looking at, just sort of what? Suited connecting types of holdings, like 7-6 of hearts or something.
Right.
So I mean, I think it makes it the way that you played this one, I think it makes it a pretty easy bet with the ace of hearts in tow, like in your hand here.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking on the river. I think I can still get called by, like you said, jack 10, even sometimes like, they can get, if I bet small enough, I can get called by like king jack or ace jack that had a gut shot on the turn or an open ender on the turn, that now paired up on the river. Like if they really truly don't believe me and if I bet small enough, then they're getting a pretty good price.
So I just got to point something out, and I don't mean to pick on these guys, personally, individually, but there's a couple of guys chiming in here. Obi says check call at the end. Paul T says check call. Why on earth would you ever check call? You guys know, if you've been with me for a long time, that at the smaller stakes of like live no limit, check calling on the river in general is I think is a pretty bad play. And again, the reasons to check call, there's two specific reasons to check call. Number one, you're trying to induce a bluff, right? So, you're checking because if you were to bet for value, the guy's just going to fold. And number two, it would be to get a guy to value own himself. And that would be that he's going to bet a hand at the end that he would otherwise fold to a bet. That's just never first of all, what is the guy bluffing with? King, jack, and jack 9, which are straight draws on the turn on queen 3, 10, they pair up at the end, right? King, jack, and jack 9 pair. So what hand is a guy now betting here that's a bluff where we're going to check call?
Yeah, and they would love to check back. I mean, if they get to the river with king, jack, then pair up and see me check, they would love to check because they probably think they win.
And the other thing too is that you look at, well, what about like queen jack? Would queen jack bet? I mean, queen jack probably should bet, but queen jack is definitely calling for sure. So why give the guy a chance to check back queen jack and think that, you're like checking ace king here? You know what I mean? Like it's a 2-5 game. So I just cannot think of, how possibly checking here on the river would be the play.
For sure. You don't have to go for big, but you have to at least go for thin value.
Now, there are times when I say check the river and like you could check fold. This is not one of those times.
I don't know.
But again, of course, having the ace of hearts in your hand, I just think it's a very easy bet. But okay.
Yeah. So I do a little bit of like a block bet. Like I just try to bet small enough to try to, again, get called by like Jack 10, King Jack, Ace Jack. You know, if he ever has like Queen 9 ever that he did check back the flop with. So I bet 45 into like 100 and 115.
So you're trying to get called by a jack or a 10, right? Like if he calls turn, you might have a 10, river. I mean, it's sort of not the best card for you in the deck to get like a whole lot of value from because of the fact that ace king now beats all those hands. So I kind of like small for sure. So hero bet's 45. Okay.
Do you like that size? Would you go even smaller?
I might go a little bit. 45 and a 115. I mean, at this point, the pot's small enough where it's kind of I think it's fine. 35 to 45. But I do think that with your specific combo and what has happened with this action, a small bet is in order for sure.
Yeah. So now it gets interesting. He actually raises to 175.
So the button now raises
175. Yeah.
Button raises to 175. That's kind of, I mean, it's weird in the sense that, like I said, I talked about how there weren't going to be many backdoor flushes here represented if we think king, queen of hearts is going to be like either 3-bet or bet off on the flop. If you think most queen X is betting, throw out queen 9. So that's like a suited connector that backed into hearts. Could he also have like pocket 10s and pocket jacks here that wasn't necessarily 3-bet or those?
Yeah. So a little history from this guy, like 100% free betting 10s or jacks pre, like, especially against me. I'm considered a little bit more of like an aggressive player in the game. So I don't think there might be, sometimes he might flat 10s if he was like on his phone and didn't pay attention or something, but he's 100% free betting, in my opinion, all of the pairs pre. And I think if he ends up with the river here with like, let's say 7-6 of hearts or 9-8 of hearts or 8-7 of hearts, like he probably would raise the river facing 45. I mean, I probably would as well.
So Obi says, you see, because I was the one who called them out saying like, don't check call. Yeah, but the whole point of this is that the caller is betting for value because he wants to get called by worse. And now this seems like it's never a bluff here. So
no, I don't think he's bluffing ever.
So it's just a bet fold. Now I can see maybe where this is going here because of the fact that you've got a queen in your hand and you have the ace of hearts in the hand. So before we get to the whole discussion of whether I feel maybe this is going where you're considering doing something here with like a bet 3-bet at the end, the idea of this is it would just be a bet fold. Right? Like he's not bluffing. And ace queen is not good enough to call, right? Do we agree with that?
Yeah, I agree for sure.
Okay. Because we're just not seeing a guy really do this with, like I said, it would be so infrequent. There would have to be so many things that would have to happen for him to raise with like something for worse would be queen jack. He would have to not bet the flop. He'd have to be like playing the offsuit queen jacks. And then he remember, he's losing to ace king. You
Right.
check the flop, bet the turn, and now you're betting the river. Who is raising queen jack here at the end? And it's not like you went stupid small. The backdoor hearts came in and ace king came in. So we can really logically say that he's never really raising anything worse for value, I feel like, here at the end.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
And in the moment, I didn't feel like it was a bluff. And it was one of those spots where I knew I was going for thin value. If I got raised, I had already kind of decided what I was going to do with my hand, because when the river came to jack of hearts, like, I just feel like I have all the boats here. Like if I flopped queens full, I probably would check.
Here's the thing that concerns me, though. I mean, here's the thing that concerns me. Again, yes. If you saw his hand and it was like 6-7 of hearts, we could have a discussion. Well, I was going to say we could have a discussion about whether you think that it might be profitable to bet 3-bet the river. What I'm concerned about is if he has like 10-10 or jack-jack, but I just remember that you just said that you think he's always 3-betting those hands. Because what would concern me here in real time would be, what about the boats that you're just never getting to fold ever here, in the form of like 10-10 or jack-jack? And then, of course, there's like one like quad threes type of holding. So you're looking at like, well, I maybe can get him off a small flush, but I look at this and I'm like, yeah, but what about some of these other hands that are at never ever folding? But I think what you're saying is you just never think he's got like jacks or tens ever.
Yeah, I don't think they're, especially from what I know from this guy and how much I've played with him. Like he would, yeah, he would just always three. Like if the flop was like queen 9-9, this would be a different discussion.
Uh-huh.
Because now all the two pairs are now boats, right? Like 10-9, jack-9,
Mhm.
queen-9,
Right.
queen 3-3. Really, no two pairs that are now boats.
People saying I'm calling. I don't think I think calling's the
Calling
worst.
is terrible. That's probably the worst.
Yeah, calling I think is the worst option. But again, I mean, I suppose I don't know, man. Like, I know. I mean, I haven't watched as much. One of the things I want to do, I've told myself because I've heard the videos are really good, is Mark Goon's Hungry Horse stuff. Because he takes a different approach, and he's a really good player. He's a friend of mine, and I know that he's like really experimenting around with moving people off of hands as running big bluffs. I don't know if some of this stuff where he was talking about like 3-betting rivers, if it went that far. I just can tell you in my experience, it's just hard to move people off of hands that they sort of perceive to be strong. Now, with that being said, your logic, if you think he never has tens and jacks here, and you've got the ace of hearts and you have a queen, then it's probably one of the best candidates that you could make this play if you were trying to say like fold them off of, I suppose, like a small flush. I mean, that's what you're trying to do, right? Fold them off a small flush.
Yeah, and my thought process was as well. I mean, it would be logical for like, would you raise the nut flush here? Would you 3-bet the nut flush here in the river, having played the way it played?
So if you had,
Because I most likely would.
well, I think it would depend. Actually, you know what? I think I would not want to have like ace queen of hearts here. So say you had like ace 5 of hearts and you didn't see bet the flop. So I would want to not have ace queen of hearts. So it really depends on, and I would not want to obviously have a king. I would not want to have ace king of hearts. So it depends on what you would want to have ace little of hearts. I feel like to 3-bet at the end. I mean, if you come to this, if you have, if you had ace 4 of hearts here and you played it this way, and you're telling me, Robin, that the guy never has jacks and tens here, never, and never has queens because he 3-bet you pre, how can you not 3-bet the nut flush? You're only losing to pocket threes.
That's what I was thinking in the moment. I was like, if I had the nut flush here, I probably would re-raise. Like the only combo I give him is like maybe once in a while he has tens. Maybe once in a while he just flatted the button with tens.
Well, I mean, if you had ace king of hearts here and you thought that he was always going to be betting off queen X on the flop, then you're blocking a lot of the hearts that he can have here. So it might start skewing him to having other hands besides flushes, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I think it depends on what you have in your hand. So hero bets 45, button raised to 175. If you were going to go for it, I suppose, I mean, now we get into this whole like live discussion of, well, theoretically, and the thing that makes sense in math is like, if you want to give him the worst price, right? You want to jam all in. So he's getting the worst price. The sort of, again, live paradox of live poker is sometimes that will get called at the same frequency, if not more, than making it like a 3-bet value size that your opponent thinks that they would do with like pocket queens or pocket jacks, like 3-betting it to like 850 or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He made it 175 and I made it 600.
Oh, so you did go smaller. Wow.
Yeah, because I was thinking I would not go. I mean, all in seems like that's because it's so much more. I mean, we're 1,300 effective to go from 175 to like, I mean, what would it be?
I mean, we're splitting hairs here. I mean, so I can, for the same reasons I just said, I can get on board with a smaller bet than all in. I feel like you might have made it too small though. I mean, you go to 600. I mean, I think you should go to like 900 or something like that.
Just because you think he's never folding?
I just think he's at 600. He might just talk himself into calling for 425 more. Where you go make it 900, he gets worse of a price. It's more money. And then again, like I said, sure, you could move all in, but the paradox of live poker, sometimes people would be like,
yeah.
Although in this particular spot, though, like when he's raising on the backdoor side, I could see just moving all in anyways if you actually had like a boat. As if you had like tens or jacks or something, say you bet the turn with jacks and then you bet at the end and then you raised. If I think someone's got a flush here and you're unblocking all like the nut flush combos, I might just jam thinking that the guy's never going to fold. Hero 3 bets is 600. Okay.
Yeah, the reason I went to 600 was just because it's such a rare spot. I mean, to see a 3-bet on the river is like, it's pretty unlikely. You don't see it very often. And so I just said in my own head, like, when am I ever bluffing here? And if I am never bluffing and I have a lot of value, like what size would I go for value? And 600 is probably the size I would go, because I think all in, I mean, like, I don't see what he would like. I feel like I'm only getting called by quads.
Yeah, but you're over. I just think you're starting to overthink things a little bit, though. I think you're starting to overthink things a little bit. So you're trying to like be balanced with like what you would actually do with your value in terms of.
That was my thought process. Yeah.
So you 3-bet to 600 and.
Yeah, he tank folds. Never got a reveal. He kind of just said, all right, and just folded after a couple of minutes. So
couple of minutes are a long time.
Yeah, it was like maybe 1.5, 2 minutes, something like that. Like he thought about it for quite a while. And then he just said, all right, and folded. I never got a reveal, unfortunately.
I mean, this is kind of like what I like this hand, even though we didn't get a reveal. I always say that sometimes poker, like reading a hand is like a conditional logic problem. If people ever took like philosophy, could be even like philosophy 101 or 102. So what we're doing is we're doing like what if or if then. I think is it what if or if then statements. And the interesting thing here is that if you buy into the if I give you these conditional statements that Jack is 3-bet pre-flop 100%, 10-10 is pre-flop 100%, Queen X is bet on the flop 100%. So if you plug that in, now that might not be the reality, but I'm just saying, if you plug that into this hand, you can see why 3-betting with ace queen with the ace of hearts would be the play. Because he really just can't have any high flush here at all, because you have the ace of hearts, and he can't have queen X of hearts because he didn't bet the flop. So is he calling with king 9 of hearts? And then, so he's just left with small flushes. And if he's always folding those, then that's the line of sort of conditional if then types of things moving through this hand. But I appreciate the call. Thank you very much, Robin.